Today we are looking at a monopole fatality, which Barry Niemand will be presenting for us, something that happened on site. I will then tie into that with rescue preparedness, and then Victor Okello will talk about gear management and control. So we've got a tight schedule because there's a lot to say. And I think if like I mentioned, you can definitely put your comments and questions in the comments section. But I want to encourage you to stay involved. I know joining an online workshop like this, it's oftentimes very tempting to be checking your emails and check your WhatsApps and maybe go and make yourself some coffee and so forth. But I can honestly say that if one day, God forbid, you would have a phone call that somebody has fallen on your site and they're hanging in their shock absorbers or they're hanging on the rope and the team can't rescue them, you're gonna wish you sat and listened and concentrated during this call, and hopefully make some notes and hopefully bring those changes and implement those changes within your company. So I want to encourage you just to stay focused. So with that said, I want to introduce Barry Niemand. For those that
just
don't know...
Apologies. I just see you've got some hands, Heinrich.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a RW and a PC. I'm not sure if you want to maybe just quickly address the two hands, if it's fine with you.
Yeah. Sure, 100%. It might be that those hands went up instead of sending me a thumbs up or a high five. And I don't know if I can unmute them at this stage. Right. Can I ask that if you do not have a question to lower your hand, RW, Ricky, Peter, Pumlani. If you do have a question, keep it up. Pumlani. Okay, all the hands are down. Okay. All right, perfect. Like I mentioned, we would be taking your questions. Just pop it in the chat section. So yeah, Barry, I quickly want to just say something before you jump in to introduce you. You're going to do another introduction of yourself, but I know Barry for quite a while. He's obviously a HSE specialist at Vodacom and been there for quite a number of years. And one of the things that I can honestly say with my experience working with you, Barry, you get safety officers that sit in the office and sit in boardrooms, and they are very good with writing procedures and risk assessments and making plans of how safety should work on site. But I know, Barry, you've got your fair share of experience working on towers. You know what it's like being in a windy city on top of the tower, and you're getting seasick because the tower is swaying left to right, and so forth. And there's so many little things that comes with actually working on site. So you take the actual site realities and you bring it back into the boardroom and building procedures and risk assessments based on what will actually work. So I appreciate that from you, Barry. And I want you to talk to us a bit today. But first, just give us an introduction to yourself, please. You're on mute.
Good day, everybody. It would have been good to see you. But I think with that said, I think I'm not going to go through the self-introduction. In totality, I've been in Vodacom this year, August, I will be 15 years within Vodacom. And within my previous company, I was 19 years in a landline telecommunication operator within SA. So telecommunications, the whole A to Z is within the blood. Been through a lot of changes through the years with regards to changes in innovation and even the cell companies. And I don't want to give you my real age, But I mean, when we started back in the day, it was brilliant to just do a normal phone call. We actually called it the old rotary calls. Been through all of the changes, all of the continuous innovations, and I think the future, to our statement always in Vodacom, the future is exciting. It's continuously changing. And I think with that said, yeah, I really enjoy my work. I'm passionate about people. And then also, except for that, is the currency that we are dealing with in safety is lives, not something else that we are dealing with. We literally taking part in people's lives, families, fathers, mothers, children. And I think really the impact of each and every one of us on this call today really makes a big difference in what we do. And I think one of the best things I've experienced very early in my career, and specifically in the safety side, I do have the privilege to also be on the other side. I used to also be an engineer or a technician on the floor. Is that experience also comes through quite prominently when we actually do safety. And you do experience now, yes, there is new experiences and new innovations and things that's coming through, but I think overall safety in its own area, it's not something that we need to do extra. It's just the way we work, and we all compete for those lives. Main focus is each and every one on this call today. We would really like you to go home safely, number one, and then that no one goes hurt and no zero harm. There's so many different slogans, but we're all competing for the same goal of making families go forward and not being into trouble or actually have a breadwinner or somebody affected. And that's not only for Vodacom. In ourselves, we're also looking at our partners, our suppliers, and then also the public, our customers. Wherever we work, we really like to make sure that we are doing it safely. So I'll be sharing quickly with you a learning and experience, learning and sharing that we've done earlier this year. A very strange type of incident. Let me know if you guys can see my presentation. So you would see we're really within the African continent, and I think a lot of the times people say Africa in its own right, we need a lot of assistance, and yes, sometimes we do, but I think I know in many of the instances we are on the front of leading in many of the applications, specifically today's discussion on working at heights. We are really good in what we do. Yes, we are still learning, and I think many of these instances we are still improving. Continuous innovation and continuous improvement is always necessary, but we really have in this specific space. I'm proud to be in the Africa continent. I'm proud to be talking in this discussion today, and thank you to Gravity giving us an opportunity to quickly share. But the long and the short is we are on the front of many of these things. If you look at our geographical areas, right from South Africa to Cairo, there's quite a lot of challenges. I'm not just talking about Vodacom. There's challenges, there's minimum requirements, but I think in this specific space, we really excelled tremendously with good, well-defined working at height minimum requirements and really looking at continuously improving and adapting to the workforce as we go along. So I want to just quickly share with you today a learning and sharing, and hence the discussion also on rescues. Quick information is limited on this incident. The individual would like to refer to the specific individual as John Doe, a very tragic accident or incident, not work-related. So in South Africa, we are plagued with quite a lot of vandalism, theft, copper theft. And in this case, there seems to be a team that was actually then targeting the site. They broke through the fence. They broke into the site itself. They opened the trapdoor at the bottom, accessed the structure, and more or less the top gold in these sites are actually copper. What they then do is steal the copper, cut the copper, especially the earthing and bonding and all of those things that goes into the tower, and sometimes even the lithium-ion batteries and everything that's copper on site is of very high nature and frequency that they're stealing this. So it's a third-party fatality. It's actually, unfortunately, fatal. person got stuck in the structure at the top trapdoor. And a lot of this is, the information is very great. But what we can tell you is when we received a call for a fault on the site, because obviously when they cut the power, there was a ticket raised, and what we then did is sent out a technician. And it's clear that we do have some cameras on the system, but it's not always that clear. And I think with that said also, this was a team more or less, so I think 4 or 5 people that actually entered the site, and it was then plundering or stealing some of the copper. And in this case, the individual then got caught. Not sure exactly. We're still waiting for the post-mortem report. But the main focus here, it's a monopole structure. Luckily, it was close in town, and I will show you in the picture on the right-hand side the local emergency services. Their ladder extended to the top of the structure. Obviously, the individual had no working training because they are actually not supposed to be on the site after breaking in, and then actually got stuck at the top and unfortunately died in the structure. His fellow colleagues or thieves just left him there and did not even report us. So we actually only got to the site the next morning, which then is due to the fact that we don't drive at night and we don't treat non-serious related network faults at night, and we were actually waiting for the next morning then to address the network fault. So next morning, in this case, technician arrived on site, climbed into the structure, and then noticed that somebody stuck in the structure. After investigation, looking at everything, we then started looking at it. Gravity, always helpful like they are. Came out to site. We had quite a lot of people on site. You will even see that actually had quite a big spectator value. We had the local police, the local ambulances, and the fire brigades. There was quite a lot of local management on site. And in this case, unfortunately, then determined that the individual has passed away. But I think what I really need to just point out, while I'm saying it was in an urban site, it was not very rural. I mean, it's close into town. And obviously, you can then still get these big-sized emergency vehicles with their ladders to the top. So the incident reported by the Vodacom technician. And, you know, there's quite a few things that one will then raise from a learning sharing point of view. Complexity of the rescue due to the individual stuck in the structure, can't pass him from the bottom. So you actually have to then access the tower from the top through the trapdoor and then actually then do the rescue. So if rescue processes are not followed from the onset, you would actually get yourself into a very difficult situation. And I think today's discussion is just sharing this. Although not work-related, although not related to a rope technician or a rigging technician, there's so many different jargons and descriptions for people that's climbing, fall arrest technician, rope access, whatever the case may be. I think what we would like to raise today is, out of this experience, if one is stuck in a monopole and you did not follow the process, it actually complicates the rescue so much more. And then if you look at this, if you do not have access, and it may be a high site, a greenfield high site on the outside, it is even much more difficult for these major big trucks to then access these roads with these extension ladders to get to the top and then to perform the rescue. So that's the problem statement and a little bit of an overview in the technician. Not a lot of information available, and we're still waiting for the post-mortem, but the minute we will maybe just update everybody. But what I would like to quickly focus on from our side currently in our business, in the specific risk area, we do have our absolute rules. For those that do not know our absolute rules, is one of them are very much more focused on working at heights and driving and electrical, but today's topic is working at heights. So currently, and it's a continuous movement of culture. It's company culture, and as I'm not saying within Vodacom, but it's also our partners and our suppliers that's joining. And then what we also see is there's quite a big appetite for risk and taking chances. I think from that point of view, I would also like to just quickly talk about the management responsibility. We always talk about
Barry, you have frozen. Are you still there? Barry? Just give me a thumbs up if anybody else is also experiencing the same issue, that Barry is frozen. Okay. Thank you.
apologies, I'm back. That must have been a drop in the call there. Apologies for that. I'll just quickly share again.
No worries, you are back. We can hear you, Barry.
Thank you. Apologies. Hopefully you didn't count that time also, Heinrich. I need to get just a minute
now
back.
You only have 5 minutes left.
So I'm going to leave the camera off. Maybe that's part and parcel of it. But I think what we are looking at currently in South Africa, and I do have quite a lot of, let's see, Grant also raising his hand with regards to the network drop. I hope you can see my presentation, but I think with this said, supervision, we always put a lot of focus, and I do agree, but I think also the company culture and the risk appetite by the CEOs, the ExCos, and then the line management responsibility of ensuring these requirements. Fraudulent certificates this year has majorly spiked. We have cases of at least 40 people in one company that had fraudulent certificates updated with new dates, or people that was never trained suddenly having new certificates. And that's why it's always very important to share and work with companies that's very responsible on working at heights. It's so easy if you do not know how to check a technician's competencies and CVs. Please go to the Gravity Training website. You can track those online. And I think fraudulent certificates, in this case, a lot of the times the people say it's the climber. Yes, I know about or the companies, but I think what we really need to take note of is the economic challenges currently, and that's what bringing me back to the company culture, which is quite a challenge. If people are going to take a shortcut, it actually comes sometimes from the top and not just from a site supervisor or the individual. So I think that's one thing I would like to raise. Equipment management, equipment integrations within different types of training, types of training operators. And hence the reason we've always had the focus of standardized training, standardized SOPs, standardized equipment, standardized rescue processes, specifically for the reason that we are, and when we are doing this, that we are actually having the equipment in such a way that we can actually use it and cross-use it from one company to another, where you are actually then working. And I think also with equipment management, I just want to quickly touch on it. If we do, and when we do our inspections on the outside, it's very clear that people always complain of the cost of the equipment and the training. But when we get to the outside, if you look at equipment management, equipment care, you will see those ropes, your harnesses, everything is between the tools and the batteries and the boxes in the back and not really maintained. So with that said, there's quite a lot of focus. Every time when you start speaking about training or working at height equipment, it's very expensive. But if I look at the treatment of these equipment and how we operate on the outside, it's quite clear that the left and the right is not talking to each other, because we complain about cost, but yet we do not care for the equipment or ensure for the care from a management point of view for the equipment. Not applying training and SOPs, and I think this is also quite a major focus. The question is, I can be trained, but we still have the human factor, the human behavior. Somebody asked me the other day, we've got cameras in our cars, in-facing and out-facing, monitoring driving behavior. The cameras is not there to monitor the driver for anything else by just changing the behavior. Not addressing the behavior and allowing non-conformances to continue, a person will continue not adhering to a SOP. And this is even with you knowing that the camera is on you. So a focus on the supervision, but also the monitoring and the control part of it. What we've also picked up is no pre-task risk assessments and implementation of minimum requirements and controls before we start with the work. Checking of the equipment, making sure the site is safe. In this specific case, also, how would you approach it? It could have been not a person, or it could have been bees that's within the structure. Did we do a well-defined pre-risk assessment, task assessment? Bees, snakes, wasps, whatever you can most probably find in a structure, you will find it there. Did you do those pre-inspections and the minimum controls? And then structural compliance, we had quite a lot of very bad storms in South Africa, in all of our regions. If you do not pick up or do a pre-task risk assessment, you will not know if your structure is safe. This is observation. We are not structural engineers. Some of us are. But in this case, it's also just check the structure, your anchoring points, your self-identified anchoring points. Training equipment process is not standardized. What we do pick up a lot is we will have a fall protection plan developer trained with one company and the people trained with Gravity. If you start looking at the fall protection plan, there is no integration of the SOPs from Gravity into the fall protection plan, because the fall protection plan developer was not trained on the SOPs and the safe operating procedures. This will be for fall arrest, rescue, for lifting, all of those things, and the integration thereof. And then you will actually have different types of harnesses, different types of equipment, and hence the reason we say standardized minimum equipment. Emergency plans, to this case, yes, we have a standard baseline, but I don't think we still take these emergency plans. And these are all obvious points within our rescue. If you have to go to a site, do you know where's the closest hospital? Do you know if there is emergency services? Where is the emergency service? And I think the problematic part of this is if you cannot access a site with this type of truck, how will you do this rescue if you are stuck inside this tower? And in this case, for example, this is after the effect, but it was still a major mission to rescue the individual. And then with good practice, good SOPs, processes followed, we will be enabled, if your fellow climber is in the structure, you would be able to rescue the person if followed. If not followed, we will have to follow this extreme measures. And then from there, it will become much more difficult to address this. And then I think we're all exposed to different landlord requirements, different tower codes, different processes, different procedures. Do you know the contact details of the tower co where you are working? Is it your site? If it's not your site, how do you do it? And then I think also part and parcel is stop work authority. And this is hand in hand with unsafe conditions, unsafe areas, unsafe work, creating that psychological safe space for people to raise their hand and say, this is unsafe. Can we redirect the work till tomorrow? And you do get the so-called heroes, which will take shortcuts and try to fix things at the cost of business. I'm not sure if you can still see. Okay, this is just one of my security pieces that's quickly coming in, and we'll close out now. But while we're going through it, it is one of those areas where we have to create those environments where people can report unsafe conditions, and it's like incident reporting. Apologies for those. It's our security internal processes. But when we do this, is stop work authority. Just create that space. And then medical fitness, alcohol, medication, and drugs. We have a rule about it, but I think we sometimes stuck on the fact that we're looking at alcohol. Many times now in the last few weeks, we had quite a few areas where people showed up at work very badly affected by flu. Then they took medication, cough syrups, different types of medications which really impair their ability to work. And I think we're so much focused just on alcohol. I think we're there in that same stop work authority is if you are not feeling well, especially when you're doing high-risk work, driving, climbing, electrical work, make sure, and this is real cases that I've based these points on. Local emergency processes, I just touched on it. I'm not going to go too much in it, and that's much more your authorities on your local areas, wherever you are situated in Africa. And then I think the differentiation between ladders, fall arrest, rescue, rope access, lifting, Gravity has so many of these awareness documents and bulletins on the system. I even looked at the latest one. We had a lifting issue during this week. The question is, why are we not adhering to the SOPs? Why are we not adhering to the bulletins? And I think to my point today is what we are doing is we have brilliant documentation, we have brilliant training plans, good equipment. But I think on my side is what we are picking up in our supervision and our monitoring programs is the implementation is never checked by the company. And then secondly, you have to check these things not from an office. You have to be on site and looking at those type of areas where you are using ladders, your full arrest equipment, your rescue kits, rope access, and make sure that it's aligned to the SOPs. If you pick up something, come back, report. It's not a focus just off a stick, but how can we improve continuously going forward? And I think in many instances also the last part is quite obvious in this high-risk environments. Lone working is very, very, very much high risk in specifically, even if people are actually breaking the rules and they know it's not supposed to, they will still try to satisfy their line manager, not always the site supervisor, the line manager and the ex-code to say they've done the job. But in most probability, and when I'm looking at lone working, and you can't just have one competent person on site. You must be looking at your team as a team composition as per the SOP. Who must be trained, what must they be doing, and then from that point of view, do you have the relevant equipment? And I hope that was within my 15 minutes. My closure here is, no one gets hurt. We have good policies, we have good processes. I think the biggest part of this was not work-related, but I think when we look at this scenario, it actually had to be escalated to a emergency services, which was able to access the site to remove this individual, which was totally not work-related. But you should ask yourself the question, if you are in this situation today and you are stuck or you actually you experienced a problem within one of these structures, did you follow process in your company? Are you following these processes? Do you have the relevant equipment? We had a case this week where people are using a part of a lifting kit to do rescues. That's their rescue kit on site. So please do not try to do this in the office because you will never get to those things. The implementation, the monitoring and the supervision is also from a third-party point of view. Go to the sites where the teams are working, and then you will start seeing the outcomes, and you are able then to put in the corrective measures. And the main focus is no one gets hurt, and surely incidents will happen. We're not immune to any incidents. I would like to just say we can have incidents, but they should be controlled. And when they are controlled, the severity and the impact to our employees are much less when we're doing that. And let us then just make sure. Brilliant training programs, brilliant equipment, brilliant SOPs, everything that you can imagine, standardized approaches. It's actually just making sure that last piece is implemented. And like I said, even with cameras in our cars, people are still taking chances because we are dealing with human behavior. If you do not address the gaps and the non-conformances and improve, they will remain there and they will just become bigger. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Barry. I appreciate that. Very insightful. And one thing that strikes me is I've spoken to a couple of people about this specific incident. And the general thought is that it's a it was a vandalism case. So it's not applicable to contractors on site. But my comment to that is essentially if you aren't employing the correct gear and the correct procedures, there's no difference between your teams on site and this poor fellow that passed away. So thanks for that, Barry. Appreciate it. What I want to do is jump into my slides quickly. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Great, thanks. Yeah, so based on this incident and on the back of what happened in February this year with this fatality, and we oftentimes hear similar stories around our markets in Africa, South Africa, of people that needed to do rescues. So we created the safety bulletin called Rescue Preparedness in March this year. If you don't receive the safety bulletins, let me know. I can share it with you. But one of the cases I mentioned there is in Harvey, if you can unmute your mic so long. In 2022, a technician fell from a tower and was left suspended in a deployed full arrest system. Now, the guy that did the rescue on that site is with us on this call. It's a colleague of mine, Harvey, that is in DRC. Harvey, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
How's it, Harvey? Thanks for joining. Harvey, if you can quickly just run us through what happened on that day.
Okay, so that was in 2022. I was coming from a site. Actually, it was a training coming to I was on site training the guys. Then the training was done, and on my way home, so I saw someone hanging on a tower. Then I was also stuck on the traffic. So the more closer I'm getting to that site, I've seen that guy was struggling, trying to get down. Actually, he fell from the tower and he was suspended. So I decided to stop because I was on a motorbike. I decided to stop the motorbike, took my equipment, then climbed the tower to go and rescue him. And actually, that guy hit his knees on the tower, so he was not able to do any other movements to come down. So I decided to do a rescue. And actually, when I started doing the rescue, I was like taking it as we do on practical and what, but actually it was a live rescue. And the sooner I got this guy down, we tried to manage and try to call the nearest services so that a taxi so that we can take him to the hospital. So actually, if I decided to rescue that guy, because we used to do it on training, and I'm always prepared to do a rescue. So yeah, it was a little bit like hard for me to do that rescue because that guy was really inside the tower, stuck within two sections. But yes, I was prepared to do a rescue, and that's what happened.
Yeah, thanks for that, Harvey. And I'm sure the person that was rescued is very grateful. I remember when you told me the story the first time, you mentioned you got on site and the site supervisor was on his phone and he was actually very distressed and crying, trying to get his manager on the line and trying to get emergency services to come and help. And he was very stressed. And I think the fact that you pitched up there and could do the rescue was a blessing for them. But that might not always be the case, yeah. And that's why we created this safety bulletin, and just to bring awareness of the fact that this actually happens. People fall and people need to be rescued from time to time. One of the things I highlight in the safety bulletin is this, what you see on the screen. Before work begins, ask one real question. If someone is left hanging today, can we rescue them immediately? If the answer is not a clear yes, the job is not ready. That's something I highlight in the bulletin. And why I say that is we look at our sites, we look at our work at height site and say, sure, I can rescue somebody on this site, but not knowing that you might be at different positions on a tower, on a building, during the day. So I want to give you a couple of examples. We all quite familiar with the ratchet rescue, or most of the people on this call would be familiar with the ratchet rescue, which is a very straightforward and easy rescue to perform on a tower like this. But unfortunately, not always will the towers be small enough. It might be a very large tower and the guy might be hanging suspended between the members, and you might not be able to reach him, where that complicates the rescue a little bit. Another scenario is you might be on the inside of a monopole. We've spoken quite a bit about that. I can honestly say the monopoles are so tight on the inside that if you're somewhat a big person, you won't even be able to fit through there. So there's definitely no way that you're going to fit past the patient to rescue them. And even if you have a procedure to climb and rescue somebody in a monopole, what if you're at the top and he falls over the side? Now in this photo, the shock absorber is still nice and short. It's not deployed. But in real life, it would probably be deployed and the guy would be hanging 3 meters underneath the crow's nest. As is the case on this picture, the guy fell over the edge. Will your ratchet rescue be sufficient to rescue this guy? Now the question is, how come the guy got to that point unless he was doing rope access? But will a ratchet rescue be sufficient for this? Can you do it? Another scenario is someone falling through a fragile roof. Now, this is definitely a point that we can raise maybe in our next workshop, is fragile roof work. There's a lot of fatalities on this. And if somebody was connected to a system, can you rescue them out of that scenario? And then lastly, here's the aid climbing. Obviously, this is more for the rope access crowd that's on the call. I can honestly say aid climbing is a very remote location. So anybody that's on an aid line, if you had to pass out, to reach him, firstly, will be oftentimes a big mission. And then secondly, to aid with him out to a point of safety is a massive mission, and it takes long, unless you've got a nice long rope and you can drop him down to the ground. So these are just some. I mean, the scenarios is endless that you can find yourself in. So some of the rescues that we've got to help with some of these scenarios is the straightforward ratchet rescue. Most of you know that one. There's a rig for rescue option, which is a very great option to rescue somebody very quickly. Essentially, the rig for rescue is just a system that allows you to, if somebody passes out or whatever the case might be, is immobilized, you can just open your descender and let him down immediately. You can complete a rescue on a 30-meter structure easily within 2 minutes. You can get the guy down if there's no complications. So a rig for rescue is very nice. There's a lift rescue if your point of safety is above the patient. Remote rescues, this is more rope access related. So there you see a guy on a loop and someone coming in the loop to rescue him. Team rescues for diagonal and horizontal movements, and cutaway rescues. So if you are still using cutaway rescues, there's so much out there to advise against it. We've stopped using cutaway rescues many years ago, and it's not safe. So if you're still using these rescues, please talk to us. Let's help you with more modern and better techniques. So my heading here says no rescues are one size fits all. You need to consider your site and the complexities of that site and where the team will be on the site throughout the day. So let me just check my time. Okay, got 15 minutes. I'm going to skip my video that I wanted to show you guys because of the time constraints we have. But essentially, yeah, let me just show you a small piece of it. So in this video, I'm trying to show, should I be in a monopole, how impossible it would be for me to do an actual rescue. So if you can just check that.
Yeah.
Is the sound coming through? Sorry, can you just give me a thumbs up if my video sound is coming through? Okay.
Because of the restriction, but if I'm really sure I can maybe reach the point, if I'm lucky, I would be able to reach this point. So at this point, I need to connect my rescue system to stop beaming, which I definitely cannot reach. And then I need to still proceed another 1.5 meters higher to install my rescue system at the top. So you can see there would be actually.
This as well. Then the rope pulls back, connect the descender carabiner and the sling as well. Reach your wood intact or get at the top of that and climb away.
So I've reached the top of the tower. I've established a separate anchor point for myself. I'm hanging on my work belt. You might be standing on the crow's nest. I've established a separate anchor point that's safe, and I've removed my beam system. So I used the same rope with a descender at the top of the anchor point, and the other end is attached to the climber. So I can put that as it comes up. All right, Ian, come when ready. All right. As Ian climbs, I build.
Okay, I'm going to pause it there for the sake of time. You can see that I am belaying Ian as he climbs up. If Ian had to pass out, I can easily just lower him with a descender. And where I was the first climber with the shock absorbers or the pylon hooks and the rope running through it, if I had to pass out, Ian can rescue me as a rig for rescue system. So a very easy rescue system there. Unfortunately, I can't go through the whole video, but just wanted to show that to you. Now I need to pass this slide, which is, okay, there we go. Okay, so to end off my discussion, I just want to say these last 3 points, and I say every site supervisor should ask the following 3 questions, but I want to say it's not just the site supervisors, for the safety managers on the call, the CEOs and owners of the companies, it's everybody's responsibility to ask these questions. And the first question is my rescue procedure applicable for the job? With an emphasis on the word applicable. Throughout the slides, you could see that one rescue might not be applicable for all the scenarios you're going to face. Second question, do I have the right gear for the said procedure? With emphasis on the word right. If you're used to a 30-meter tower and your rescue kit is for that, but today you're working on a 60-meter tower, it's not going to be the right gear. And then the last question is, do I have at least 2 competent technicians on site to do the rescue, with an emphasis on the word competent? Many times guys come for training and then they say, all right, cool, 3 years down the line, I've got my certificate. I'm competent to do a rescue. But in those 3 years, you've never practiced the rescue, you've never gone through it or refreshed. I would doubt that you would be able to do a rescue in 3 years if you've done your training. So those are the 3 questions I want to encourage you to ask, encourage your site supervisors and teams on site to ask these on a daily basis. So that's that for me. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. I'm going to hand over to my friend Victor, and he's got a very tough job because you've got only a couple of minutes, Victor. If you can just run through some of your slides and possibly give us a couple of minutes for questions and answers, I would appreciate that, Victor. Victor is my colleague and friend in Kenya, and grateful to have you here. Thanks, Victor. Victor, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you, Hendrik. I hope you can see my screen. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor, and I'll be taking you through the gear inspection and equipment. Thank you, Barry, for sharing the lessons, and thanks, Harvey and Hendricks, for the important discussion around rescue incidents. My presentation will just build on the discussions. And one thing that connects many of these incidents across our industry is equipment. How it is used, inspected, stored, managed, and sometimes misused. In the field today, we continue seeing damaged gear equipments being used, or incorrect use of equipment, or even bad selection. Rick, hope you can see my screen. I just try to be very quick because we got.
Cool. What you can do is, if you need to skip through some of your topics, that's also fine.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry about that, Victor.
Okay, cool. Not a problem. I'll jump straight to the reality challenge in the industry. And in many contractor environment today, we continue observing the same recurring issues. The supervisors often not competent to supervise the work related to safety, but we realize riggers are competent to perform the task, but they are often required to take orders from the supervisors. So a leading cause of incident that occurs due to the improper supervision of people that do not understand their responsibility. Why the gear management matters to me. A proper gear management is not only about compliance, it directly affects the company. And the solution to this, we must select equipment correctly, inspect them correctly, store them correctly, and use them correctly. Some of the common mistakes, these are actual issues that commonly observed during site visits. I do a lot of visits with our clients, not to report them, but to create solutions. And one thing I love about us is we look at the problems and we try to get the solutions for our customers in the industries. And one major concern to me is accountability. If equipment cannot be traced, you cannot inspect it properly and you cannot control its usage, and you can't even verify the accountabilities. I've seen the common areas where guys even use the connectors. You see the hook shock absorbing connectors and hooks, using them to heat or even press electrical cable lugs during cable terminations. And this damages the hooks and even structural integrity of the equipment. When it comes to equipment category, not all equipment serve the same purpose. One of the biggest mistakes in the industry is mixing these equipments. For example, someone using lifting equipment, Barry mentioned someone using parts of the rescue equipments on rigging works. When you need to do a rigging, doesn't have the complete equipment. Each category has got different standards, different limitations, different inspection requirements, and different intended applications. So the standards also here help us to ensure equipment has been properly tested and certified for safe to use. You must be able to test the strength of the equipment, trace it, its compatibility, and the legal compliance. Labels is one of the simplest, most important safety practices in understanding labels. The technicians must be able to indicate the serial numbers, the date of manufacturers, the standards, and the working limits, and the inspection marking on those manuals. If you cannot identify it properly, then it means you cannot use it because it doesn't have information for that equipment. When it comes to the pre-use inspection, you send the technicians to us and we give you back competent technicians. We sell competencies and we expect our technicians to be able to identify the software part of the equipment and the hardware part of the equipment. They do the pre-use inspection. To me, pre-use inspection is the final opportunity to identify problems before an incident occurs. However, inspections only work when technicians are properly trained to identify. I'll encourage us to invest heavily on the supervisors, because supervisors often act as a bigger link between the safety management and the teams in the field. When it comes to the formal inspection, a strong equipment management systems must include formal inspection. Any equipment involved in fall event must immediately be removed from service. So we got the technicians doing a pre-use inspection daily before the work starts, and the detailed inspection by a competent inspector every 6 months, a post-incident inspection by the inspector immediately an incident has occurred. Then we got a HSC whose task is to ensure storage complies with the safety inspection and housekeeping requirements. Equipment,
Victor?
when it comes to it, yes.
Victor, I'm going to quickly ask. So we are running out of time, but for those that do need to drop, you are welcome to drop. Victor can go on for another 5 minutes or so. I think we can go to 10 minutes over, including questions. So if you can stay on for just another couple of minutes, if you need to drop. Thanks for joining, and we will let you know when the next workshop is. Thank you. And Victor, sorry, you can carry on.
Okay, thanks, Enrique. I'll just try to be very fast, just giving a true story of equipment misused. In 2022, we found a pulley broke during a tower building operation. That shaft of the pulleys came out due to excessive wear and tear on the pulley. Gladly, there was no one injured on the property, only the property damage. So the root cause analysis here, what caused all this? Although the pulley was strongly enough to handle up to 5 tons, it was only meant for lifting up to 30 tons. The pulley was designed for the frequent lift and not the long lift. Only use equipment that is fit for purpose. I also have an experience whereby a technician friend of mine, who's a supervisor early days, had an incident on site where a technician was fatigued, and the guy fell on the platform. Fortunately, he had his shock absorbers on, and what actually helped this guy when his shock absorbers was on, and they were struggled to rescue this guy. They used a funny rope tie to lower this guy down the same way you lift lowering a dish and doesn't have even a brake system. It was a very torturing moment for this guy, and that properly tells you how it's important to ensure rescue preparedness on site. When it comes to equipment storage, I'm just about to finish. Storage conditions directly affect equipment lifespan and integrity. How do you store the good practice? How do you store your equipment, and what to avoid? Ensure equipment are stored in a dry environment, stored in a clean and protected from a UV, protect them from chemical, organize them properly, and avoid wet storage, oil contamination and heat exposure, and also the dirty flows. The reporting procedures as well, ensure equipment be able to identify it. They must be tagged, removed, reported, and even inspected. And how do you retire the equipment when you find a bad equipment on site? Safety accountability must exist at every level on the organization. What's the function of a HSE managers? Ensure you develop proper systems and audits. The supervisor must be competent enough to verify the equipment and stop unsafe work, and ensure all safe technicians be able to pre-inspect their equipments. Technician as well must be able to inspect the equipment, report the defects, and management must also help by procuring certified equipment and also support the training. Leadership standards heavily influence safety culture. Okay. Now, the recommended improvement that needs to be done to improve safety performance in our organization, we must ensure strength, accountability, inspection, competencies, and contractor management. As I finish, the key takeaway for me, the main message today is very simple. Most equipment failures are preventable. Strong systems require require competent people. Equipment does not fail fast. It is management that fail. Competent supervision saves life. Good storage extends equipment life. Accountability might exist at every stage, every level. Competency matters. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. I appreciate the opportunity to discuss these important industry challenges with you today. Look forward to any question or any discussion. You can, on the screen, you can look at our website and also the LinkedIn pages. Our next work at I'll return back the mic to Hendrik. Sorry for the rush.
No worries, and sorry for giving you such a short time to present, Victor. You did very well. Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks to yourself, Victor, Harvey, and Barry for your input. I think all these things ties in together so nicely, and I want to say that having a safe work at height environment is not just the job for one person in the company. Everybody needs to be involved, and there's a lot of different components that you need to think of. It's not just competency, it's not just gear, it's not just culture, or just a risk assessment. There's so many things that need to link together. So thank you for this, and I wanted to say that you might look at what was discussed today and think it's too much for you to take in and too much for you to implement the changes. But if you can take 25% and implement 25% this month, or maybe the next 2 months, and then 25% again the 2 months thereafter, by the end of this year, you would have complied to 100% of the requirements to make your people safe. So it is daunting, it is a big task, but start with small steps, like how you eat the elephant, one bite at a time. So thank you. Thanks everybody that presented. Thanks everybody that joined. I want to check if there's any specific, the time is now 3 minutes past 11. Ryan, are there any questions that we can discuss quickly in the next 5 minutes?
What I've read from the people on the group, nothing that I can bring to attention yet. It can be answered once we close this meeting.
Okay.
If there's anyone available that has questions.
If there's any questions, you're welcome to put it on here.
I see Nonkosi, his hand is up. Not sure if they want to ask a question.
Nonkosi, if your hand is up, please drop the question in the comment section.
And Mustafa as well.
I see there's questions coming through. Let me just go check it out. Let me just check out. While I'm looking at that, I want to remind you about lifting safety. If you can, if you want to let me know, I can send you the invitation for that.
Last question there.
All of our harnesses are Gravity Gear brand. Most of these harnesses are worn out because D-rings are rusted. In this case, are they still safe to use or should be discarded? If so, how can you tell at a glance? If not, what solution would you recommend for routine maintenance? That is, who's that?
HSC Next Hope.
Next Hope. All right, good question. Harness D-links are rusted. Can we still use them? So the question is always, how long is a piece of rope? You know, it's difficult to say if you can or not over a message like that. Essentially, how much rust does it have? If the rust is starting to affect the steel and making small pit marks on the steel, definitely would compromise the strength of the steel. If the rust is surface rust, you can easily just get it off with a small brush or wipe it off. Obviously, if it's aluminium, it's white. If it's steel, it's that gray, brownish, reddish color. If you can get it off, then it's fine. But as long as it's made pit marks in the steel, it's not fine. I would want to say a lot of technicians, especially in Africa, it's hot. You sweat when you're using your gear. I know Tanzania is very humid. You sweat when you're using your gear, and a lot of guys put their harnesses in a PVC bag for the night. Next morning, they use the harness. If you're going to do that within 1 week, you're going to start picking up rust. So keep your harnesses to air and to dry overnight so that it doesn't rust in a PVC bag. But I hope that answers your question. Surface rust, that's acceptable. Pit marks, please discard your harness.
We have a question from Bongani. Does Gravity offer refresher training on rescue, and for how much? So I think we could answer that. So we do have workshops available.
Yeah.
And any questions related to gear or sites that they may have, they can ask us at our workshop.
Thanks, Bongani. I think this will be the last question I'm taking here, but you're always welcome to reach out to us. Yes. Well, your certificate expires within 3 years. And after that, you do need to come for training again and full assessment to make sure that your guys are still competent. But like Ryan mentioned, we do have free of charge workshops in at our certain locations. We can't have it everywhere in Africa, but we do have free of charge workshops once a month. And during those workshops, the customers, you guys, the riggers, come and speak to the trainers, and we discuss what areas they would like to focus on, and we deep dive on that, maybe look at different rescue procedures, and are they still current and fresh on their work at height techniques. So it is something that we're doing to put back into the industry free of charge. The guys can come for that. Yeah. Okay, we're 7 minutes past. Let me take one more question and then we're going to drop. Is there something?
I'm having a look. There we go. There's a nice question from Robert Archer.
Robert Archer, I'm going to discuss with you separately. Of course, we can come help you in Namibia. we want to be there for you guys.
100%.
Okay. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Barry, are you still there? I just want to thank you. Victor, thank you. Yeah, it was great having you part of this call, and you have really given us good information and things to think about. So thanks, everybody. We'll send this out to you. We'll send out the recording and also the slide deck to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, bye.